Good evening and welcome to the Gold, Goats, and Guns Hour here on Periscope and YouTube. My name is Tom Luongo. Got a lot to talk about. It is Friday, September 28th, 2018. So let's get started. So Kavanaugh, Lindsey Graham, Jeff Flake, Dianne Feinstein, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins. Not Rhodes Scholars, one of them. Not the limelight or the intelligent literati. Not the founding fathers. I weep for this country. And by extension, then, the world, because as this society breaks down, and as the political process here in the United States breaks down, it's going to have massive effects all around the world. There's no way around that. I make this point all the time, and I will continue to make it until somebody actually finally gets it through their heads. The more the Democrats attempt to fight and win, the more the Davos crowd, the opposition, the resistance, the deep state, whatever you call it, you pick your poison, you pick your term. The more you try and fight Alyssa Milano, Oprah, the rest of you, all of you, the more you try to fight, the more you will lose. The more they are alienating, the more you are alienating more and more and more of the center of this country. These people live in this ridiculous echo chamber. This echo chamber that says everybody must be a communist. Everybody's a socialist. Everybody's a cultural Marxist. It's just those rubes out in flyover country. It's just those rubes in the North Country in England. It's just those rubes in Hungary. It's just those rubes in northern Italy. It's just those rubes in Czechoslovakia, in the Czech Republic. Betraying my age here. It's just those rubes in East Germany. Those deplorables. Those awful people. The scum of the earth. They don't matter. Their opinions don't matter. What they want doesn't matter. They're not sophisticated enough to understand what's going on while we lose our minds. And the truth of the matter is that the ones who are out of touch are the ones that are pushing this. If they were smart, they would let this go and confirm Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. Like tomorrow. Like now. They would reconvene. And the reason is that what's on display now jumps the shark. It jumps the shark of so many people's disgust circuit. I talked about this in an article I wrote this morning. It's already been put up on Lou Rockwell. It's already been on Zero Hedge. It's already been on Jim Quinn's Burning Platform blog. It's already going everywhere. It's going to go viral. And here's the gig. The disgust circuit works like this. It's part of what Mark Schaller calls the behavioral immune system. And there's plenty of stuff on the internet, on YouTube about this. And so you can look up this stuff. And you can look up Jonathan Haidt, Haidt. You can look up Ian McGilchrist and the Master and His Emissary to understand how this insanity, how this crazed ideological insanity gets out of control. Because the people who've stoked this have lost control of everything. They've lost control of the narrative. They've pushed so many people into extreme tension and extreme craziness that they've done irreparable damage to our political system. Lindsey Graham's comment yesterday is, y'all want power so bad, I hope you never get it. Do you understand what you've done? No good or decent person will ever show up to want to serve the public trust. Not that from an anarchist perspective like mine, I think that's a great thing, right? But in general, we're looking at now the most conscientious people in the society, the people who want to change the world, who want to make the world a better place, who care about their community so much that they're willing to sacrifice and they're willing to do what needs to be done. And they're not going to show up anymore. All that's left, because any person with any degree of sanity is not going to go into politics. Now, again, anarchists like me says, great. But there has to be a transition period for transition state from where we are, which is really kind of hyperstatism. We all practice in a philosophical sense. Every country in the world, nearly every country in the world, practices a kind of hyperstatism. And you've got to understand that we're going to need a decent transition from where we are to where we're going. And this breakdown will be disorderly. It will be dangerous. It will be awful, because as the people that we are today, the generational imprint that we are today, the societal imprint that we are collectively today, is not ready for this at all. At all. So I continue to make this point over and over again, that the more the Democrats try to fight, the more the opposition tries to fight, the more they're going to lose. It's like a Chinese finger trap. The harder you try to get out of it, the more stuck you get. Like a game of Go between a master and an apprentice. The master offers you a face-saving loss by 6 or 7 points, a third of the way into the game, and the apprentice says, no, let's play it out to the end. And then the master beats him by 30. This is just not going to go well, because the more they do this, the more they undermine the confidence that people have in the global financial system, in the political system. It will turn itself, it will morph into panic in the financial markets. We're seeing it now. Dollar liquidity numbers are terrible. Okay? We're seeing crazy risk premia start up now. We saw a crazy set of things happen in the markets over the last 2 days while everybody's been distracted with Kavanaugh. The SEC opened up a fraud suit against Tesla. Okay? With Elon Musk picked $420 a share out of his ass in that tweet a few months ago to burn the shorts. Okay? Tesla got gutted today, 11%. This is the end of Q3. This paints horrible. This got to understand that quarterly closes matter. Okay? Fund managers square their books on the last 4 or 5 days of the quarter and book their profits or book their losses to minimize them. Okay? These things matter a lot. The ends of financial quarters matter. And in the last 2 trading days, the markets have gone completely insane. Italian bond yields blew out 40 basis points this morning. Because why? Because the EU and Italy are at odds over 0.4% of GDP budget deficit numbers. Okay? That's how fragile things are. And that's the point. Facebook comes out with yet another data mishandling. 50 million people's account information got leaked to the world. Guts the stock by 9%. That's where we are, and that's where we're going. I'm going to react now to a couple of comments that I've got. I am not overreacting. I know it's just politics as usual. I'm talking specifically to WDM's comments here. I'm going to read it now. I am overreacting. Just politics as usual, with both sides playing to their cores, energizing them before the midterms, great for campaign contributions and media traffic, expect more of the same. I expect all of this. I expect it to be worse and worse and worse. But it's more than that. I think you're misreading how desperate the resistance is. They have gaslit 25% of this population into thinking that Brett Kavanaugh is going to personally gut babies, or going to personally put women in jail for having abortions. Do you understand? That's what they're thinking. Okay? It's not politics as usual anymore. It's a different level now. And if you just think that this is politics as usual, you're not. I firmly believe you're not paying attention. In these times, you have to set your hair on fire to get attention, so the Dems and the reps did it. They are media pros, and these hearings are TV shows. Again, I understand all of that. I understand the dynamics that you've got to put that these hearings had to go on, and all of this stuff had to go on in order to placate and play games with the fact that the Republicans don't have a real majority in the Senate. That Flake and Collins and Murkowski and others are all freaking Democrats. So the whole thing, I understand that it's easy to be that cynical that this is just politics as usual, but it's not, because the background of everything that's going on around it amplifies the magnitude of what's happening. That's the point that I'm trying to make. If this was 2016 or this was 2015, no, I could care less. So this is about power and nothing more, nothing less. And it's always about power in DC, but it's about more than this. Every one of every major political and institution of the post-World War II era is under fundamental attack by a growing right-wing, nominally center-right, what they would call populist uprising. Okay. I'm not speaking for you. I'm actually reacting to what you said, WDM. Right. I understand that we are on the verge of France 1786, Russia 1906. I get all that. And I'm not overreacting to what's happening here. We are at that moment where we're seeing this is that moment where everything changes. This is that moment where everybody looks back and says, how did this happen? This is when we look back and, you know, I was talking to a friend of mine the other night. And he's like, they do realize that we can see them like manipulating levers and stuff, right? Don't they understand that we can see what they're doing? This is not 1969. This isn't even 1974. Shit, this isn't even 1999. This is 2018, and we're all pretty media savvy. This is a midterm election. Okay? This is a midterm election. The people watching a midterm election are people like us. Okay? I got news for you. Most of this country doesn't give a shit about any of this. And yet they're trying to manufacture outrage. They're trying to manufacture some way to get women to go to the polls. They're absolutely misrepresenting or missing the target. So why would you do this? Why would you turn this into a Roe v. Wade thing? Why would you turn this into a referendum on toxic masculinity on a midterm election against a guy who's, for all intents and purposes, is a choir boy? And not even, you know, from a libertarian perspective, he's not all that great. We're not like jumping up and down for joy over Brett Kavanaugh, for Christ's sake. Don't kid yourself, okay? why this is the hill they're willing to die on, and to turn it into this type of issue. Come up with something else. But all they can do is what they know how to do. I say it all the time. They're very smart, but they're not very clever. So at the end of the day, it's always just nuts and sluts, baby. It's all it is. They can't make him into they can't turn him into a crazed psychopath because he's not crazy intense like me. They tried that with Donald Trump. It didn't work. They tried the sluts part with Donald Trump, Stormy Daniels, the pussy thing, all that crap. Didn't work. Why? Because Trump has no shame. Brett Kavanaugh showed yesterday that he's got a real shallow disgust circuit. Good for him. They were expecting him to be cowed yesterday. They had all their talking points all laid out. And when he turned around and he attacked them back, they didn't know what to do with it. Oh, well, he doesn't have the temperament to be on the court. Bullshit. Of course he does. Any man who was put in that position, anyone with any sense of decency or sanity would turn to Dianne Feinstein and just rip her a new one in public. But it's not, see, but DC, User 13, this is where I disagree. I don't think Roe v. Wade is a winner here right now, because the guy they're going after, the optics on this, Kavanaugh, this stuff versus Blasey Ford, are you kidding me? This is not the right way of going. This is not the right guy to go about this with, right? This is not the right guy to bring that out with. And so what they're doing is they're turning the whole thing into an absolute nightmare for themselves, I think. I mean, I said it this afternoon on Twitter. They're miscalculating here. They're like, what are you going to do? You're going to continue to shore up the third wave feminist vote? You've already got those fucking people. I mean, you're not going to convert that many Gen X libs into centrists into foaming at the mouth. Oh my God. Oh my God. He's a rapist. These women have sons. And women love their sons. And women don't like people who treat their sons this way. They don't have, it's not a winner here. Okay? Most of these talking points are coming from people who don't even have children, so they don't understand what they're talking about. This is what happens when you raise an entire generation of political operatives who don't have children, who don't have any life experience and don't have any freaking perspective. They'll grow up in these academic echo chambers, have destroyed the ability. They've destroyed the universities. They've destroyed the institutions of culture. They don't know how to argue. They don't know how to debate. They don't know how to construct an argument, no less have it challenged. Great. Joanne Leone is here, and she's echoing my point. I was just going to say that. I have 3 sons, she says. They miscalculated on women who have sons. Exactly. And I got news for you. That's more than the feminine. That's a bigger percentage of this population than 20-something feminists. I mean, but they don't have anything else. And it's going to backfire on them badly. If they turn this whatever, man. I see this is the kind of cynicism I just don't agree with. Trump has maneuvered his base into raging support for a lifelong swamp creature who has probably never met a deplorable and would not defend the rights of such people. And that's his record. That's the kind of cynicism that's ridiculous. Brett Kavanaugh was the right choice for this moment in time. I have an opposite view of that one. Ready? Kavanaugh's a Boy Scout. And Trump knew goddamn well that this is what they were going to do, that this was the playbook they were going to run, because this is the playbook they always run. This is the only playbook the Clintons have. So he handed them a perfect candidate to run this with that, to run this nuts and sluts technique on, so that it would fail. It would fail miserably. That's as deep as I think Donald Trump executes. He's not deep, but he understands media and he understands Democrats, and he's a skillful politician. DevPav. Kavanaugh had the best record on immigration of anyone on Trump's shortlist, and maybe that was his deciding factor. Again, I have a hard time with unlimited cynicism. I've been there. I've been in that mindset at various times in my life. Never when I've actually been doing this shit in public, because dude, we're going to be stuck with a bad guy. I got news for you. The only thing I give a shit about is the Second Amendment. All the other ones don't matter. The Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, they already gutted. The Patriot Act gutted them years ago, and the court's not going to do anything about them. The only one that matters, only one to me that matters, is the Second Amendment. As far as I'm concerned, Kavanaugh's fine on the Second Amendment. Done. Everything else doesn't matter. I'm a single-issue voter when it comes to SCOTUS. My guns. That's all I give a crap about. If they overturn Heller and he's there, dude, I'll eat my hat on the air. Okay? Everything else does not matter to me. See, and the bigger problem is that they're doing irreparable damage to the institutions. Again, from this anarchist perspective, okay, they're doing irreparable damage to the institutions on a generational level. I got news for you. My daughter, not going to grow up a reactionary Marxist. They're not coming for our guns unless the Democrats get in charge. The Democrats are coming for our guns. I'm sorry. The Second Amendment's not going anywhere unless the Democrats get in charge. And when Kavanaugh, and if you're right, WDM, if you're right, and that Kavanaugh agrees with them to take all our guns, I got news for you. Motherfuckers are going to start getting shot, because it's not going to happen here in the U.S. Certainly not in my lifetime, and certainly not in yours. It's going to happen 2 generations from now, after they've convinced all the kids in this country that guns are bad. But it ain't happening this month, and it ain't happening next year, and it ain't happening before either you or I are too old to freaking pick up a gun and shoot one and hit anything anyway. And if it does, got news for you, we're all just disagreeable enough that motherfuckers are going to get shot. The cops aren't going to stand for this. The military's not going to stand for this. Come on. I know enough cops and enough military to know exactly what's going to happen if that ever happens in this country. There will be a military coup so quick, it won't matter. There will be secession, there will be breakdown, there will be all sorts of things. That is all, I'm sorry, that's all doom porn as far as I'm concerned. And I mean this sincerely. RB Tools, forget about Kavanaugh's positions, because it's really, you're right, it doesn't really matter. Focus instead on the way in which this nomination is poisoning is poisoned by an obvious smear attempt. No, bigger than that. Look at the results of the smear attempt and what it's actually doing. When Lindsey, I'm sorry, and I don't buy the idea that Lindsey Graham was play acting yesterday. I've watched the speech, I've watched the statement at least 4 times now, and I'm sorry, Lindsey Graham was real yesterday. I will also agree with that. The problem is that the SCOTUS is way too important to our process. I agree. You can thank the Democrats for that. You can thank the Democrats since FDR. You can thank them for turning everything into, and Lincoln, because Lincoln destroyed the primacy of the state Supreme Courts. They've just turned the Supreme Court into the thing that dominates our political system. Because look at what's been happening. Look at what happened. Right? Trump tried to declassify, within his rights, declassify a whole bunch of the emails and the documents pertaining to the investigation. And the friggin' Gang of 8 shows up and says, oh no, you can't do that. Excuse me, this is my constitutional authority. I can do this. These guys are basically saying you have to come to us and then we have to send it to the Supreme Court for you to get permission to do your job. Bullshit. Pelosi should have been stripped of her seniority. Schumer should have been stripped of his seniority. Feinstein should have been censured. Feinstein should be censured for what she's already pulled over everything with Kavanaugh. Good afternoon, Charles Martel. Greetings from Zero Hedge. The Democrats have at every level, we're watching everybody go nuclear. Everybody. In every theater of American politics, we're going nuclear. We've gone nuclear on trade and tariff talks. We've gone nuclear on trying to stay in Syria. We've gone nuclear on Ukraine by having Poroshenko tear up the friendship agreement between Ukraine and Russia. We've gone nuclear with the Democrats. We've gone nuclear on their opposition to Trump. We've got nuclear on Russiagate. We've got MI6 going nuclear on everybody to stop the outing of the British deep state and how badly they're the ones who were behind all this shit in the first place. You've got Browder and the Harvard boys going after the biggest banks in Europe. All this is all happening in real time, guys. It's all happening in like the last 3 weeks. Everybody's gone nuclear. And the markets are beginning to reflect the reality. Trump foresaw this right before the midterm, says Charles Martel, red pilling a lot of fence sitters. Look, this is a 40-30-30 country. 40% independents, approximately 30% Democrats, approximately 30% Republicans. The Democrats are doing everything they can to torch their credibility with the middle 40%, which decides all the elections anyway. And this is a midterm. Most of them aren't going to vote. And who do you think's winning this fight? Trump or the Democrats? I got news for you. It ain't the Democrats. It's not the Democrats. Not at all. If it was, I would tell you. But it's not. They're losing. You only go nuclear when you've got no other options. And Trump has already backed down on a couple of different nuclear options so far in his presidency. He's taken everything to the limit and then negotiated. Take everything to the limit and then negotiate. It's what he does. And he's not deep. It's not 4D chess. He intuits his way through a lot of this stuff. He's good and bad. It's always 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. Sometimes we got to go right to go left. I mean, this is the way it is. Why do you think gold isn't at 2K or higher with all this stuff going down? Gaia's Vindex. I will answer that question in a little bit. They're pushing white women out of the Democratic Party tent. It's hilarious. Yeah, it is. That's like their second biggest voting bloc at this point. White women and black women. My new nephew will grow. Rocket Man. My new nephew, who, by the way, is really cute. Rocket Man sent me pictures via Twitter DM the other night. Really cute kid. And I don't say that about every baby. The baby's ugly. I'm like, oh, that's nice. I'm sure you're very proud. I've learned. I've been in the South long enough. Oh, bless your heart. Aren't you proud? But no, he's a real cute kid. And he's gonna cry. He'll be a rabid libertarian anarchist. Yeah, you should listen to my daughter. She's so red-pilled, it's not funny. We're not creating libertarians with this circus. We're creating fascists the lefts are so afraid of. The Dems' insane rhetoric against white feminism is definitely driving them out. Yeah, I mean, it's insane. Okay, to get back to Gaius Vindex's question about gold, or comment about gold, there's a reason why we're not quite there yet. And gold is going to break out, but it's going to take retail. Retail is not quite ready yet. And they haven't decided to lose faith in all of the institutions yet. I've told this story before in various forums, and I'll tell it again. I've written a couple of articles that go over this, but let's just kind of go over history in real broad sense. The gold market is ready to break higher. Been ready to break higher for 2 years now, since Brexit. All it needs is for the switch to flip. And this ties in, and gold ties into all of this, okay? So I'm not really shifting topics here. But it takes the catalyst to create the bull market, because gold doesn't respond to all the things that the experts say gold responds to. Gold doesn't respond to any of that shit. Gold responds to retail investors moving into gold because they fear for everything else and they don't know what else to do. And when the institutional order starts to break down, when the political order starts to break down, gold starts to rise. So gold right now is trapped between low dollar liquidity and rising sentiment that there's something deeply wrong with this country. Okay? But at the same time, nothing has really shaken our faith in the system. That may happen after the midterms. Something may change. In 1999, the gold market was ready. It was ready. It bottomed. It was basing. 1999 to 2001, it just sat there and based. Hit a low of 240 and moved back up to 330, but it sat there, and 330 was the line in the sand for almost 2 years. The same way that 1365, 1370 is the line in the sand in this bear market that gold can't breach. Making higher, sitting there can not break through 1375, makes a low in 2015, then makes a higher low in 2016, then makes a higher low in 2017. This year is probably going to make a higher low in 2018. Tightening the band, tightening the trading band until finally there's an event that causes the thing to break higher. What was that event for the last gold bull market? It was 9/11. No one ever talks about it in these terms, but I'm the only one who does. And I'm the only one who gets it. Except for maybe Martin Armstrong. Even Armstrong hasn't said this, that 9/11 was the catalyst for the new gold bull market. But it was. It took something to change the sentiment of retail investors that they were scared for the political future of the United States. First it was Bush v. Gore in the fall of 2000, and then it was 9/11 9 months later. We're going to need something like that, and that will be enough to then start the process of dissolution. And then gold will, and the 2K, forget 2K, we'll be looking at 5, 6, 7, 8K. The sky's the limit on the upper end of the gold bull market, depending on how badly the political process breaks down here in Europe, Japan, and the United States. That's the short answer. Joanna Leone. Schumer is obsessed with getting suburban voters back. His political strategy on it in 2016 is an infamous failure amongst Bernie guys. He miscalculated again on Kavanaugh, thinks Dems will get white suburban women back. No, they won't. They won't. I only remember gold being high in the late 70s and around 2009. Am I wrong? No, you're not wrong. 2008, those the two big highs were in January of 1980 and September of 2011. Those are the two major highs happened. But there were plenty of interim highs along the way, and gold started from a base of 250 or 260 in late 1999, and then hit a peak of 1911. I think a 7x expansion of the gold price in this next bull market is very, very possible because this one is bigger. This financial crisis that's coming is much bigger than the central banks. And that will fundamentally shake the pillars of heaven, to quote Jack Burton. I've heard that Long Island was MS-13 gangland before Trump's ICE cracked down on it. I don't know. I have no idea. I haven't. Tell us more about Bill Browder and the Harvard boys' activity in Europe. How will the planned actions against the drug runners affect offshore banking? Why did Graham mention Foreign Legion? Okay, that I didn't hear. That's a loaded question, Marshall, that I don't think I can answer all of that. So what's going on in Europe is the Browder and the Harvard boys are going after Danske Bank, the biggest bank in Denmark. If you've not followed the headlines on this, I got an article on it, and I've got a couple of streams on YouTube, streams and videos here on YouTube about it as well. And you can follow the work of Lee Stranahan, Lucy Commissar, and a few others. Follow me on Twitter, and then just start reading the people that I'm involved with on Twitter, because they're going over the Browder thing and with more of an attention to detail than I have time to read. But what's going on there is, and I feel very strongly about this, is that they've been trying. Browder is trying to stop investigations into his, and still trying to stop investigations into his very hinky offshore movements of money. And he's trying to stop Putin's offshore investigations into him. And he's been putting pressure on Cyprus through the EU, and being the guy to file the complaints about money laundering operations at Danske Bank. How the fuck does this guy get this kind of information? Okay, if he wasn't handed to him by, I don't know, MI6 or the CIA or the NSA or whomever, right? Come on, seriously. Bill Browder is, seriously doing research and digging into independent investigative journalism into offshore banking of, money laundering of major Danish banks in Estonia. Give me a fucking break. Pull the other leg and plays Jingle Bells. It's as believable a story as Christine Blasey Ford. Is Danske an overreach by these guys? This is Denmark, not some former Iron Curtain company. Not the numbers that they're throwing around. So is there a new ironclad alliance between Al-Qaeda and Turkey and Idlib? No. I hear Erdogan is the toast of the head choppers, whereas U.S. and Kingdom of Saudi Arabia hung them out to dry. That they did. Why would Turkey ever leave Idlib? Because Russia tells them to. Because if Turkey wants to have any kind of future relationship with Russia after they've torched their relationship with the United States, then how is that going to fly with the Russians? Lavrov came out and said point blank that the agreement was a good one and was very temporary. Meaning it was meant as a tactical pause to stop the Americans and the Israelis from staging, and the Brits from staging a false flag chemical weapons attack to avert an invasion of Syria. I think Erdogan chose sides. Finally. That's not to say that he's not going to try and get his pound of flesh. I think that at this point, Syria is going to be balkanized no matter what we do for, and here's the other thing. I was thinking about this afternoon while you were, because WDM and I have been sparring all day on our private Slack channel, which is good. I think it's healthy. I mean, it's don't get me wrong. I'm happy to have the sparring match because it makes me better. It makes you better. It makes everybody better because we have to challenge each other's assumptions about how the world works. It's the only way we grow. It's the only way we get better at this stuff. So, fine. I'm not angry or frustrated or anything else. I may be intense. I may disagree, but I was thinking about this on my way into town today when I went to pick up my daughter from work, and I'm saying to myself, I know he's really angry about the way Trump has handled Syria, and because I can see it in his posts, and I can see the anger and the frustration, but I'm like, there's an order of operations to getting all this stuff done. You're fighting a war like Trump is on 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 fronts, and some of these fronts he's picked himself. If you have to understand, I have to say to myself, is it really that terrible for Syria to continue to be balkanized for another year? 2 years? I mean, I don't like it, but I'm not talking about what I want. You know, remember, there's always the what I want and what I got, right? This is the world I want. This is the world I got. And I tend to be a glass half full kind of guy, even though I'm paranoid and neurotic. Or at least some people think I am. But at the same time, I have to ask myself, why is it that it would be so terrible to continue to war of attrition out the United States and Syria for another year or two? Because Trump is fighting the neocons at home. He's fighting them in his cabinet. He's fighting the Democrats. He's fighting Europe. It's obvious that Putin has this situation for the most part under control, and he's been, for the most part, silent on all of this crap about Syria, other than don't use any chemical weapons, Assad. And then they broker a freaking deal that precludes the idea that there's even a pretext under which Assad would use chemical weapons, and therefore the whole narrative falls apart, and we look like a bunch of assholes. Right. I mean, here's the thing. Why would Turkey never leave Idlib? Because they're just Turkey if they do that. The United States isn't going to back them at this point. Russia's not going to back them at this point if they do that. And so at the end of the day, who the fuck are the Turks that they can take territory and not piss off the greater powers? Erdogan's not that stupid. And I was reading some statements from him this morning as I was prepping, because I'm going to be supposed to be on with Sputnik Radio tomorrow. I have to actually, when I get done with this, I got to watch Lavrov's speech at the UN, because I'm going to be on Sputnik, the mothership, Moscow, Radio Sputnik tomorrow morning. And in preparation, I thought it was for this morning. I thought he gave the speech yesterday, and I'm like trying to find a Russian, an American translation of this thing at 9:00 this morning. Going, I got to talk intelligently on freaking Sputnik, and I don't know what I'm talking about. But no, the speech hadn't happened yet. And it was just a misunderstanding between myself and the producer who contacted me last night while I was asleep. And I thought she needed me on short notice. And I said, I was doing some prep work. I was going through tasks and a variety of other places. And I was reading some stuff between Lavrov and Erdogan. And I just think that Erdogan is making, I think Erdogan is finally beginning to choose sides because he sees what is happening. I will be on at 9:40 tomorrow on Radio Sputnik. Usually with them, it's just a 7-minute segment. So I don't know. Maybe 20. That would be interesting, but I don't know that I can do 20 minutes on the Lavrov speech. So that'll be hard, but we'll see. Is Bill Brother the father of that kid who was trying to create the first AI lawyer? I have no idea. The Russians can eventually make Turkey go home. They're not going to make them go home militarily. But Nord Stream 2 is going through. Bulgaria wants to spur off a Turk stream. I got news for you. If Erdogan wants to keep playing these games, eventually he will have to bow to both Putin and China. Because if China does not want Erdogan in occupying Idlib and protecting the Uyghurs there, then Turkey's biggest trading partner tells Erdogan, well, you're on your own. That's nice. Go find dollars. They have the 8th largest army in the world. So what? It's the best army in NATO. So what? It's also not that sophisticated. We'll see. And if they're going to be dug in for a few years, they may be. And Erdogan may wind up taking part of Syria. Is that terrible? I'm going to ask you the frank and honest question. Is that so terrible? I don't say it's optimal. I say, is it that terrible? Okay, now we're into realpolitik. Is it that terrible that the United States holds on to the territory east of the Euphrates River for a little while until this situation will eventually run its course? The goal was stopping the pipelines, and the goal was stopping the overthrow of the Assad government and the wiping out of Coptic Christians and genocide and giving the whole friggin' place nothing but giving and turning all of Syria into a terrorist training ground with ISIS selling oil on the open market. I think RB Tools, this is where I disagree with you, and it's a fair comment, which is to say that this is where I disagree with you, Tom. I think Russia is reaching the limit of its force projection, and any escalation in Syria will only benefit NATO and the U.S. I disagree, because at that point, then the whole thing escalates to a level that nobody is comfortable with. Putin's not stupid. Putin's not going to back down on this. He's already pot committed. There comes a point where he will sink ships, and that will be that. You have to ask yourself who is willing to have their myths punctured? The United States or Russia? Everybody thinks Russia's the paper tiger, when the reality is that the Americans are the ones that are the paper tiger. We're the ones who can't handle a protracted war. I was trying to explain this the other day on my article for Strategic Culture. I made this point, I think, abundantly clear. Which is the following. John Bolton and Bibi Netanyahu and the rest of them always make the same mistake over and over and over again. They always calculate their operations, the geopolitical operations, be it Ukraine or this or that. We're going to shoot down a Russian plane. We're going to shoot down. I mean, they got ISIS shoot down a Russian airliner over Egypt a few years ago. 250 Russians were killed. Putin knew exactly who freaking did it. And start World War III over it. Now, can you imagine what would have happened if the Russians had been behind the downing of an American airliner with 250 Americans on it? Last week, if that had been the Russians sending in an airstrike against a Ukrainian airfield, as we were trying to smuggle in Aegis Ashore systems into west of the Dnieper River, and in the process down one of our AWACS. What do you think the response from the United States would have been? We would have gone to war immediately. Because we're so thin-skinned and we're so hyper-neurotic, and because we believe in our freaking manifest destiny to change, to make the world safe for democracy, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. We feel we're the chosen people, the same way that the Zionist Jews feel that they're in charge of Israel, feel the same exact way. You can brook no. You can't punch us in the nose and get away with it. We're the bully. That's our psychological profile. And John Bolton and the rest of them, and Netanyahu and all the rest of these crazies, all think the same thing. if they analyze the fallout from a geopolitical nose punching, the way they would react to it as opposed to the way their victim would react to it. And they just think that, all they have to do is poke Russia and slap Putin in the face enough times, and the Kremlin fifth columnists will force him to go to war with them. This is the Russians. They threw 20 million people at the Germans. We lost 400,000, or whatever the numbers are. Okay? They don't like the fact that there are 15 dead Russian soldiers, airmen. But they understand sacrifice and suffering on a level that we don't. Trump is not a slave to AIPAC. Trump is not nuanced on foreign policy. Okay? Has he been doing the work of AIPAC? Of course. Did he have to pay back some political benefactors? Yes. Is he picking and choosing his targets? Yes. Okay? Did he make a deal with the neocons to let them run foreign policy for a while to stay in office? Absolutely. Am I happy about that? No. Realpolitik, baby. Sergei Lavrov. Did anybody see this piece of news? Okay, so all the people who've been telling me I'm crazy. Did you see the news? Who did Sergei Lavrov meet with on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly this week? Anybody? Bueller? He met with like 24 people. But there's one in particular that should make your hair stand up on end. Anybody know? Bueller? Fry? Bueller? I should do an entire 1 hour live stream on this meeting alone. Nobody knows. Go to TASS. Go find out now. Go look it up. I'll do the Lee Stranahan thing. Go look it up on TASS. It's on TASS. Go look it up. Henry fucking Kissinger. That's who. Now, what in the hell is the Russian foreign minister doing meeting with Henry Kissinger on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly if there isn't something in the fucking works for Syria? Anyone? Bueller? Got a snappy answer for that one, people? Because I don't. Of course Kissinger's corrupt to the gills. But Kissinger's the one who's been meeting with Trump and trying to forge the cleave Russia from China thing. Guess what? It's not working. Me? No, yeah, I know. You just smell sulfur. It's Henry Kissinger. No. I think that's Kissinger. Mr. Realpolitik himself has already stated that that none of this stuff is going to work. Kissinger has already stated multiple times in print over the last year that it's not going to work. That cleaving Russia from China is not going to work. It's too late, and that Trump should give up on the project. What he said he should set Trump in motion to do when Trump first asked him back in December 2016, but then Kissinger earlier this year in late 2017 said that project's not going to work. And I'll bet you dollars to dog shit he's in there. He was in there with Lavrov brokering a freaking deal about the things that have changed. I don't think so. It's not the S-300's Dragon M, they're already in country. I've seen We have leaked photos. The Russians already leaked photos that the S-300s are already in Syria and being set up right now. Right now. Not, oh, they'll be there in 3 months or 6 months or whatever, so giving the Israelis plenty of time to bomb the rest of the Syrian armed forces positions. Oh, no. They're in country now being set up. No. He's not threatening attacks. Kissinger's not that dumb. Kissinger's many things. He's not that dumb. I'm telling you. My read on that is very positive. The only way to cleave Russia from China is to cement our own alliance with them. Not fucking happening. The United States needs a way out of their belligerence with Russia at this point. Browder and the Harvard boys and the McCain crowd and the rest of them have put us in a bad position. And now they've got to figure out a way out of it. I think the only reason that Kissinger's meeting with Lavrov is because that's the only way they can actually forge a way out of this without causing an even bigger shitstorm. Because the Democrats have lost their mind. Because everybody else has lost their freaking mind. Today's neocons, like Mill Crystal and the rest of them, are absolutely insane. They're not rational people. And too many and too much discussion about this assumes that everybody is rational. They're not. They have their own biases, their own fears, and their own bullshit and their own baggage. It's only hardcore politicos, like guys like Lavrov and Kissinger and Putin and whatnot. Those are the only ones that see through this shit clearly. Lavrov wasn't in there with Kissinger selling Russia out. Okay? As we talked about the last time, as Thorndon broke up, hold on, RB Tools. The U.S. has just evacuated their consulate, which I saw earlier, and I hadn't read it. In Iraq, per Zero Hedge, as I expected, they blame Iran. I wonder if Trump is escalating in order to bring the Iranians to the table. Possibly. Pompeo's out there making a jackass out of himself, as always. They're getting out of Basra. You know why? Because they've lost control of it. So you blame Iran on the way out the door because that's what you do. Kissinger and Hillary collaborated on foreign policy. She laid out a serious strategy in the fall of 2016. It's bad. Yeah, the gigantic bag. No, it's the one in Basra, I think. Unless I'm wrong. Let me look it up real quick. And we are at 58 minutes, so I'm almost done. U.S. consulate in Basra. Yeah, it's not the big one. The fries cook. Yeah, exactly. We went over that last week, right? So listen. Anything? Not really. All right. So what does that mean? It means that they're losing control of Basra in the wake of us losing our control over the Iraqi government. Abadi has read Elijah Magnier's reporting on this. I know that Joanne interviewed him on her podcast recently. I saw that the other day. I didn't actually have a chance to listen to it, but I did see that. That's what you might want to listen to that. So Joanne runs the Around the Empire podcast, and she had Elijah on a couple weeks ago, I think. And I'm sure he talks about. So that's what you guys mostly talked about, which is the situation in Iraq, the political situation now that it looks like the Iraqis are actually going to choose who they want to run their country as opposed to who the U.S. wants. So that's a big deal. All right. What else? We're at 59 minutes. Actually, we're almost at an hour. So if you guys don't have anything else real quick, I'm going to start wrapping it up. But yeah, leave that, put that in your pipe and smoke it. Why was Lavrov meeting with Kissinger? That's the big question of the evening. I think there's a big bargain coming down the pike. And I'm almost convinced of it. How can America hope to win a war when it's so fractured and its people so divided? How can America continue to try and push open wounds around the country, around the world, foreign policy wise, when they can't, when we're disintegrating politically at home? Empires don't end orderly. This could be a very disorderly retreat. Okay. That's what I'm thinking. Q3 close. Yeah, one real. I said to you earlier. Looking at the numbers on like Facebook and Twitter, Facebook and Tesla, bad all the way around. Dragged down the Nasdaq, which had a chance to actually push into the Q3 close and give us really, really strong numbers to give us an idea that maybe retail was waking up to the insanity in the bond market. Nope. We flirted with a technical breakdown on the 10-year bond on a quarterly basis. Didn't happen. Quarterly close today was everything pushed risk assets back inside the box. It was a risk off kind of day, and it was an extreme risk off kind of day, and 2 days actually, and tells you at this point that the rate at which things are blowing up, they're insane, and the damage that's being done to the institutions is becoming permanent. All right. I'm done talking into a microphone for the day. You guys have a good night. We'll see you again Monday night at 8 o'clock. We'll do that again. I'll probably put out something. I want to put out a video on Tesla just because, Schadenfreude. Elon Musk is going to jail. Elon Musk is going to jail. Okay, so if you guys like what you heard tonight, please give a like and subscribe down below. That would be fantastic. I really appreciate it. Turn on notifications so that you get a ping when I go live, which is Monday nights at 8 and Friday nights at around 8:30, plus or minus 10 minutes. Sorry, guys, I'm not a network. And if you like what you heard tonight, you can follow my work over at goldgoatsandguns.com. You can follow my work as well over Strategic Culture Foundation. I write for them once a week. And you can support my work over at Patreon, at patreon.com/goldgoatsandguns. Be working on the next issue of the Gold Goats and Guns newsletter to go out to y'all next weekend, most likely, because that would be the 8th. So I need to get cracking. You guys have a good night. Keep your stick on the ice.